morning, everybody. Welcome to Primary Sources. I hope everyone is well and staying safe, and we're really grateful that you're here joining us today. We have an extraordinary guest, and I am so excited for this topic. So let's jump in while we're getting everybody gathered, and bear with me while we reset here for a moment. So welcome. As artists and as our technology expands within our artistry and our storytelling and the visual experiences that we have, really is working to expand. We're pushing boundaries with where we are going in terms of our visual experiences. It suddenly is a new horizon with our artistry. And in this world as artists, our imagination is our most powerful tool. It's vital for our creativity, really. And it's really a huge part as we become more complex and layered with our artistry and the work that we do. And the deeper we go with this, we find that there's a bit of a tug of war. We're often torn between creativity and vision on one hand, and on the other, it really is about the commercial success and income, keeping a roof over our heads and sustaining ourselves through our artistry. So we often get on the fast track. We are eager to jump into the city of commerce and industry, and yet it's crucial that we remain steeped in our own creativity. But as the labyrinth of our lives continues in sort of a city context, we tend to step away from our imagination, and it sort of tends to change it, transform it in a way that may not be the most creative, the most effective. And it's really crucial that we remain steeped in our creativity. And sometimes it can stagnate. As I'm putting these together, often something serendipitous happens, and I happen to come across a quote that great actor Alan Alda says, "Leaving your city of comfort and going into the wilderness of your intuition." And the discoveries there really, truly are wonderful. They really are a discovery into yourself, which is, I think, the key journey we need to be making as artists. It's part of what, when we separate from this wilderness city and industry into the wilderness of our creativity, that we really become stronger. It may be a little confusing at times, but suddenly then there's a vibrancy. It might feel counterintuitive, but when we transition away from what's mainstream, we get a new vibrancy to our creativity. And we find ourselves in new horizons, new places as artists. And that's, again, a key part of who we are and the stories that we need to be telling visually, creatively within the world. Our guest today can speak quite eloquently to this experience as an artist. He is a senior concept artist and character designer at Volta currently. A visual development studio dedicated to really creating high-end 3D and 2D visuals and cinematics for video games and film. Previously, he's been a concept artist and character designer for a stellar lineup of studios and clients. And his visionary work has really taken us as audiences and experience shows to extraordinary places within his imagination. I'm really honored and delighted to introduce the opportunity to explore a different track as artists through the work of the great Rael Lyra. Rael, it is such a delight to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Mindy, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to talk about these things.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. Your artistry is so unique. You have a really singular vision in what you do, and for you know, but someone who works within conceptual art and conceptual design, there have to be very inherent challenges. Um, let's talk a little bit at first about the pathway that got you to where you are today.
Mm.
From Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
early on, when did you first discover that this is something I need to be doing as an artist?
I don't know. My mother, she used to draw a lot. When I was a kid, I have two brothers, and we used to draw with her and watch her drawing. And it felt like second nature in a sense for me and my brothers to grow up seeing her drawing. It was just there, right? And like she was giving us paper all the time for us to draw and trying to stimulate us to do the same. And at the same time, I remember like she bringing like European comics for us, which was like something very kind of bizarre, at least for me, like where I come from. It wasn't normal at all for a mother to do that. Even to access that kind of content, it was like really hard. So it just felt like a different way of like expression. Like some people they have like musical families, and I feel like in my family we were just like growing up drawing. It was just like part of the communication, let's say. So I think that was the main thing. And later I think we just continued to do that, me and my brothers, trying to involve ourselves with different mediums, and from painting to drawing and graffiti, and like contemporary art and everything in the middle, and comics. So it was just like I think it was a good start, like just getting ourselves like acclimated with that world of art making.
Sounds like she really immersed you into it and cultivated so much within you. Um, did you find then, as you were continuing, did you study seriously? Did you uh, just?
It never felt that serious, to be honest.
Huh?
It just felt like fun, and it took me a while to consider it like doing that as a job.
Really?
I think I was already 18 at the time, and up to that point I was still like thinking of maybe doing physical education.
Oh.
I used to enjoy like playing soccer, and my father, he was a physical education too, so I felt like maybe I would like to do that. I don't know. And like trying to follow a career as an artist, it felt like an obligation for a thing that it was for me more like a hobby. But yeah, when I was 18, I felt like, okay, I think that's the only thing that I really know how to do, and that I feel like I take some sort of joy in doing it more than physical education. But again, when you get to that point, it didn't feel like an obligation anymore. It didn't feel like I had to study things to let's say to get good into drawing and the technical aspect of drawing and illustration. So that's when I started doing comics around 18, 19. Yeah.
How did you, or when did you discover, or how that you could have your own voice, kind of your own singular vision in your art?
It was I think it was kind of by accident, really. It's just like, you know, when you grow up in a certain area, it doesn't matter where you are. It's just like you're trying to cherish that aspect of your life, right? The people you get to know and the things you see, the animals and the architecture of the places, the mannerisms of the people, the words they choose to say. It felt like you're so immersed on that you don't feel like you could be anything but that thing. So I feel like when I started, I was just cherishing that without thinking too much. I was just drawing based on these things. I mean, prior to professional work. And when I started, I felt like, okay, there was like a dissonance because I felt like this was something fun to do, but not necessarily what would bring me like a professional career. So it's almost like trying to take a break from that aspect of your art making and your creativity into, okay, let's try to adapt ourselves to what your client wants you to do. And that I think I worked like that for a good 6 years maybe in the beginning, and then it's just like the dissonance became so
apparent.
so apparent that I felt like, no, I have to step back and really like go back to the things that kept me motivated at the beginning.
Well, let's talk about how that transition occurred for you. You you began your work in Brazil, or where did you?
In Brazil, yeah.
And now you began in Brazil. Were you working in commercial work?
Well, when I started like doing comics for a studio from São Paulo.
Okay.
I'm not from São Paulo. I'm from the northeast of Brazil. So there was like already a challenge to be made here, like a bridge that I had to cross, just like trying to contact the right people, people who could point me to the publishers. And so that was the first challenge. So when I was able to do it, I think I started doing comics like professionally at 20. And then, so I think that was the first thing, like just working with comic books. That was my dream, sort of, as a teenager, trying to develop myself to that point that I would be able to publish something in the comic book format. So what was your question again?
Did that come, well, as we continue here, did that come, you obviously achieved your dream very early.
Yeah, sort of.
And that continued on into other areas. Did you, how was that transition for you, coming as an artist, having to work within meeting deadlines and working with clients? And
I think, Mindy, when you, at least for me, when I was starting, the whole thing was a challenge, right? You're just trying to check to see if you're really able to deliver whatever that is. So it was a different challenge. It was just like trying to adapt myself and learn that language of work and deadlines. And I remember suffering a lot at the beginning with the deadlines, that thing of like American comic books where you have to do 1 page a day. It was like very challenging to me. It felt almost like an obligation in that aspect of, okay, this is what people do, like comic books, artists, that's what they do. And then you have to adapt yourself. You have to improve your capacities in that direction. So it didn't feel, it felt like a good challenge, let's say. Like trying to improve yourself. Okay, you have the drawing aspect of things. Now you have to the other, like the things that gravitate around drawing, yeah, right? I think that the worst thing for me was just like working by myself. I really like working with people around me, and like having to spend your day alone in an apartment, because I was working remotely for these companies like for Marvel and Boom Comics. I was just working from my place, and then it's like after a good 3 years, I felt like, okay, I don't know if I really want to do that anymore. There was something missing.
What is it about community or being around others that works for you, that sparks you creatively?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think it's just the exchange, really, of learning from other people and not like enclosing yourself in yourself. And I don't know. I think it was Seneca, right? That he said something like, the problem of traveling is that when you travel, you carry yourself with you. And I can really feel like that. I truly feel like that I need other people around me so that I don't get too much in my own head.
Mm.
Yeah, it gets like depressing very, very fast.
Well, now, when you are, you've been working in the industry for a while, and um, at some point, you mentioned to me you had a very strong mentor. Talk to me about this person. And
Actually, he wasn't a mentor per se. It was just someone that I met like, actually, it was kind of recently, maybe 2 years or 3 years ago. I think if I had to think on a mentor, probably my first mentor was my mother, really.
yeah,
Right? Indirectly, because she never forced me into working with art or anything, but just the way how she sees things, it's motivating to me. It's very, very like simple and optimistic and kind-hearted. So it always felt like, okay, this is something that I would like to carry with me for sure. And the way how you face your struggles in life. So maybe she was the first mentor in like how I see art and like the capacity to extract good things from what you see, like from your experiences and the people you know. But later, as I said, like recently, I've met Cárcamo, right? Gonzalo Cárcamo, who is a Chilean watercolor artist who lives in Brazil, in São Paulo. And like having the chance to speak with Cárcamo felt like finally meeting someone who has a way more experience than I have and who understands like certain struggles that we carry as artists. And like, because I mean, when you're working, it's pretty easy to find different people. They're looking for different people in their work, but it's not so easy to find people looking for kind of the same things as you are, like in the same path as you are. So it's refreshing when you find someone like that. You have to be really thankful, I guess. It's not easy. And I do feel like Cárcamo is someone who's very sensitive. He's a great artist and is a great human being too, which is a plus. I think I'm more interested at this point in my life. I'm more interested about the people than the art necessarily. I mean, the artists behind the art,
yes.
how they think, and yeah.
Well, it's the classic saying, when the student is ready, the master appears. And it sounds like the impact he's had on you, perhaps is it speaking a similar language? Do you see, when he speaks about talk a bit, you mentioned about the struggles that artists have. Talk a bit about that for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then his impact on that for you.
Remember we were talking the other day about the train, right?
Yes, let's and I hopefully in the intro I brought that up. You spoke
yeah.
how you get on that fast track of working in the industry, and that you had this sensation that perhaps this wasn't the most effective.
Yeah, it's all about language, I feel. Right? You're trying to learn a certain language that allows you to express yourself and to be understood to that certain group of people. And it's the same, I mean, that's what happens in schools and it's like at your job. And as like digital art, as far as digital art goes, I feel like we have like a group of words and letters that we use that to be recognized and in techniques, and you know what I mean. So after a while, trying to adjust yourself to that language becomes too much, becomes like excruciating, really. You feel like you're not yourself and you're trying to do things because that's what you, by whatever reason, felt like it was what you were supposed to do as an artist. So you're drawing a certain way and you're using certain techniques or certain compositions or lighting and certain subjects also. And it feels fake. right? It feels like that's not you. That's not you. That's just the language, right? That's the language you learn to communicate. Um, and that sensation of a hollowness, it's the thing that makes you rethink what you're doing, really. Am I supposed to work in this way? Should I work in this way? Should I be talking about these things? Why is this relevant to me, if at all? And then you kind of like step back and think on your intentions. Is this about the art making, really, or is this about being respected or whatever, or being popular? And that's a topic that really annoys me, to be honest. And I try to stay away from that as much as I can. So maybe that's why getting to know people like Carcamo, it's so much about the intentions, right, and the thinking process behind, and the choices he makes, the things he wants to talk about too, right? That tells something about the artist that was like really inspiring to me. So I think that's the thing. Should I talk about the train?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a way how I've been thinking about that, the train analogy, right? It feels sometimes like we as artists doing illustration or concept design, we learn this language, and it's almost like everybody inside a train is inside a train, and the train is moving and it's safe, right? You feel like, okay, I have my friends here, and we have like the same desires, sort of. And the train is moving. It's very slow, but because of the track, you know the train's going somewhere. You don't know where that place is, or if you're gonna arrive anywhere, but you feel like, okay, I'm with these people, and I'm sharing my life with them, and we're talking the same language. But when you look through the window, there was so much to be explored, right? But the issue is you have to leave the train if you want to explore that other things, like those other places. You have to jump from the train, and you have to leave that comfort away. So I feel like this is what I've been trying to do, really. So, okay, what happens if no one knows you? And what happens if no one remembers you? Or if you don't pay attention to the people in the train anymore? What happens to your art, right? So it's like you're just going to a place where there's no track, right? You're just trying to find different paths in the wild. But the thing is, like, getting to know people like Carcamo, you realize that, okay, some people, they did that in the past already. They jumped the train way before you. So you eventually you find them somewhere. So that's the thing, and it's a sharing. I think it's reassuring to me to find those people in the wild.
A kindred spirit out there, that it's such a vast open space. I think that's a really beautiful parallel and metaphor for anyone's career life as creatives and as artists, because it does feel very isolated. It does, taking that leap of faith in you personally, and in your life choices and your career. And yet I think the discovery is a stronger sense of who you are as a person and as an artist, thus resulting in a stronger voice as an artist. Yes.
Yeah, I think you just stop caring about what people think about what you do. Not in a bad way. I think it's just like it doesn't. I think I'm saying this because for a while it felt like you should behave in a certain way, or you should say certain things, or draw in a certain way, or use certain softwares, and it felt like a pressure and something that you had to do. And I mean, I've met people in the past that actually they really felt like that. They felt like if I don't do this, then I'm gonna lose my job, or maybe I'll be left behind. And I was interested about that aspect of being left behind. It's like, okay, let's see what that is. Let's see what that means. And then being left behind, this idea of being left behind, it gives you power to do whatever you want, because you don't need these people anymore. You don't need that format anymore. You can just really pay attention in your own ideas. And it's like, it actually doesn't even hurt that much. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, that's it. It's good. It's good.
Kind of quieting the noise of the daily busyness.
Yeah. You were not even supposed to be with those people in the first place. That's the impression I have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of my works is entitled Familiar Waters, and it's about getting back to rediscovering who you are. Is it a rediscovery, do you think, for you personally, to sort of strip away all of this and kind of can start with a fresh page, a blank page, and re-explore your artistry?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, when you have like a group of friends, right? And by talking to them, you realize better your own borders, your own limits, as an individual, who you are and who you're not. So like when you live with these people, I mean, I'm talking about artists and people who work with art, you realize, okay, it's all good and I like what they're doing, but that's not me. And that's okay. And once you think about these things, so the next question is, so who are you then? Who are you supposed to be? So it's pretty simple, I think. When you think about it, it's just trying to pay more attention to your own tastes, the things you cherish in life, the things that get your attention, and trying to explore that, and then seeing how other people relate to that, because it's also about connection for sure. But that's in a like later stage. So yeah.
How has this separate journey for you and this self-discovery, how has that strengthened your art and strengthened you as an artist?
If you rely too much on clients, let's say, to tell you what to do, it feels like you're losing your time in a sense. I mean, you're getting paid for sure, but you're losing your time in the sense of your exploration of the things that they are like important to you. So like the more you have time to think about these things and to explore how your mind thinks and how you're attracted to certain subjects or certain, I don't know, like imagery, it gives you, I think it gives you a sense of meaning, right? And trying to understand why those things, they are like recurrent, why they're coming back to me. Why should I pay attention to these things? And maybe they're not really important, but they're still like asking for your attention. And then I think like when you do that, when you have like time to think about that and to consider the things that they're like coming to you as an individual, there's a therapeutical aspect to it of I don't remember who said that. It was a American writer. She was talking about art making as means to save yourself, and it really feels like there are certain things you wanted to talk about and you're not able to talk about because you don't know how to talk about them. And making art gives you, like drawing in my case, gives me the chance to explore that through a different medium. It's almost like it wasn't meant to be spoken. It's just like a different way of thinking, really. When you're drawing and you're paying attention to these things, you're thinking, right? You're thinking about, and you're trying to digest that information. So I think deep down, that's the meaning of it. It's just like being able to reflect on these things. And when you draw, it's almost like you're commenting on them, right? And you're trying to complement reality through that media, through that medium. So I think that's the point, really. It really feels like trying to save yourself, right? And to take care of yourself.
Mm. Well, and visually, you really are speaking through your artistry in many ways. And I think that's the delicate balance here. Most clients want to put their fingerprints on it and have their say, and of course, they're paying you, but it's about you've been hired because of your vision and because of your skills, and doing that, finding that way to get them to recognize that, let me do what I do and I will give you the best rather than telling me what I need to be doing. It's a tough dance to do quite often. And
it is, yeah, it's pretty tough. I would say that most of the time you're trying, as you said, you're trying to convince people that they should follow you, let's say, right? Okay, consider how you're seeing things, your choices, like your visual choices. It doesn't work necessarily, and that's fine. It's just how things are. And I'm usually okay with that. I try to make a distinction really between client work and personal work. And the idea is like, since we were talking about language, is trying to present your language through your personal work as much as you can, so that when you're hired to do something, they are interested in that language. So I feel like it's a slow convincing process, right? When you're working with clients and you're trying to push your ideas and certain visual decisions you usually take, and seeing how they react. So it's like slowly, you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to convince and say, hey, did you think about that? And it's like attacking this through a different perspective. So it's a slow process.
But it's so important as artists, and I think that's what is so wonderful about your work is keeping that independent, that voice, your singular language front and center. Do you find that your personal work speaks louder, obviously, and does that, the more your personal work is out there, it brings the attention of clients, than your commercial work?
Yeah, usually that's the thing, Mindy. I usually don't post my commercial work because, well, NDAs and that kind of stuff, I'm not allowed to. Even when we finish, and some clients, even when they publish the game or whatever, we are not allowed to publish. So there's a good side and a bad side. The bad side is, okay, people will never see these. But the good side is it keeps you focused on your own work, right? Because, okay, if I rely on this and if I'm expecting clients to allow me to publish, then I'll be the most miserable person. I need to do my own production. And that gives you the chance to say, hey, since it's me doing it, I can really make the decisions, right? The visual decisions and choose what I want to talk about. So it pushes in a different direction, which is good. It makes you more attentive to that side of things.
Talk a bit about how you balance that, how you balance your personal vision and your work and in your time.
I think it's like I was saying, I try to do as much as I can from the things I'm interested about, and as a language, trying to tell people non-verbally, hey, this is what I do, right? And this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm interested about, and I'm not negotiating that because of the things we were talking before of being outside the train. It feels like if anyone is interested about, then fine, right? We can make business, we can discuss ideas, discuss projects, and if people, they're not interested, it's fine too. It's almost like I want to believe, I'm not sure if that is true or not, but I would like to believe that I don't need to do that I mean, I don't need to be an artist to be happy or to feel creative. I could work with other things, you know, work in a bakery or anything else, and say, hey, I'll draw in my spare time, and I would be okay with that if that's the only solution, let's say. But yeah, I really feel like it's almost like when you're trying to explain an idea, and as you speak, people may get what you're trying to convey, but maybe you're going to have to show them what you're talking about. So that's usually what I try to do with my work. And it's talking about things that I feel like they're relevant to me, and trying to convince other people that they could be relevant to other people as well. So it really feels like a game in that sense, right? A different sort of game where you're playing in the long term, right? You're trying to build a language of a visual vocabulary, as I call it, and saying, hey, there is this too. And if people are interested, then fine. If they're not interested, it's fine too. But yeah, it's just trying to keep your own freedom.
I think that's such a key part of what keeps you crisp and viable within the industry that you have to do the daily work or the mainstream work for. So I think as artists, it's important to be able to find that balance where you are exploring, you're pushing boundaries, you are perhaps out sharpening your own vision of things, as you said, to expand that visual language that you're able to offer in other areas.
Yeah. It's liberating because it takes you from a place of subservience to other people and to other people's ideas to a place of exploration, right? And it has a bigger effect in your life, the way how that affects you overall, because it's almost like you're trying to connect different aspects of your life in your work and talk about things that they're not necessarily commercial. Maybe you're trying to talk about family or fear or whatever, and that's not necessarily something that you want to use or it's going to be used by a client, but it still feels like it has to be said. It needs to be said, and that's let's say that's the priority.
A larger statement about humanity, about we as humans, more about who you are as an artist, that kind of.
It's there's I really feel like a sense of gratitude for life, and being able to be alive and see things like the small things, like the trees next to my place and my daughters like growing up, and even the fights and everything. It feels like little stories inside your day, the people you get to know and all these things, and what makes you think. It's so, I think that's the main thing. Maybe it's that you're trying to make that the main thing in your life, versus work or having a career or whatever. It's almost like trying to live your own life, like paying attention to it. Yeah, I think that's the main thing.
It's a challenging balance for sure.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some examples of your work. We have sent through. Matt, if we could maybe get those up, and do you have anything specific that you want to speak to, Rael, or if we just perhaps move through them and you could talk a bit about them? And
it's funny that as far as technique goes, most of the technique that I use, it's highly influenced by me having 2 daughters.
Really?
I used to draw in a way before I had them, and because I didn't have as much time as I had before, I had to change the way how I was drawing and how I was painting, and that took me to the place where I am. And so it's again, it's like trying to pay attention how your life works and letting those things affect the way how you produce. I mean, the good things and the bad things. So it's funny because, again, it's the same thing, right? It's like trying to pay attention. And I used to render things way more, or thinking about render way more in the past. And then it kind of like, I lost that aspect of the painting, because I had to be faster when I was drawing, and also like being inspired by the way how they see the world. My daughters, like growing up, the things they would talk about, and it just felt like fun, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to, okay, this is like raw material for me. I can really extract like inspiration from these talks, and like from the time limitations too. Before them, I would have like the whole day to paint and to draw, and after them, I had to really plan, like to schedule a time for myself to draw, and that was like really hard for me. But then again, it's like looking back and looking what I do now, it feels like it was a good thing. It was a good decision, I guess.
But I think as an artist, it's important to see an evolution in your work. Um, that speaks directly to what you were talking about, is that as artists, that it's important to have that growth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated about the impact your children have had on your work,
Yeah.
and perhaps simplifying some of your work, some of the detail in your work. But has their impact on your artistry shown up in other ways, is in characterizations, in setting?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when they were like maybe 4, very small, and it's almost like you have to take yourself from that place where you were. That's in my case, like I think at that point I was working this war game, very violent, and I was like concerned about design. It at that point, it took me to a place of, okay, no, now it's time to tell stories, right? Forget about these things, forget about the techniques. Let's talk about story. Let's talk about little happenings, and that was the main thing in my head at that point of trying to switch my frequency. From this technicality aspect of drawing and painting to this place of, okay, this is not relevant anymore. It's not about this. It's about connection. So like having the girls, it felt like they were showing me things about my life and the things that are happening around me, the buildings and the animals, like discovering with them. Again, right? Like going back to your own childhood. So it's just like a different door, right? You're going through a different door, and at the same time trying to respect that process. You trying to respect that process of, okay, this is good. You can learn things from like going through this door. It's not something that you're losing time. It's almost like making a statement that whatever you're trying to do, you're using that as raw material, right? It's not something that is it's detracting anything from you. Quite the opposite. You're just like adding things that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself. So yeah, in that sense, they are like mentors too. They could be called mentors too.
Well, I think anything that helps us to sort of shift our perspective, stepping away, I call it being too close to the canvas, but being able to step away and reapproach what we do and how we see and experience, and then we can apply our language to it. I mean, what a gift that they've helped to expand your artistry in so many beautiful ways. Now, what we're seeing these are examples of various projects that you've done. Talk a little bit about.
Well, like this one, for instance, it's more about me trying to be appreciative, thankful from the place I come from. I come from a city in Brazil called Recife. Well, we call it Recife. And there's a lot of things in Recife that I feel like they're like quite unique, at least to me. Like even growing up there, the connection between the animals and the fishermen, and so that's what this image is talking about. The fishermen, like there's a big river that goes through the city. It's a river called Capibaribe, and I remember like there was like this contrast, right, between like technology and this sort of like a primitive aspect to the city at the same time, and poverty and violence. You know what I mean? Like,
Clash
and
of extremes, yeah.
exactly. And it's like growing up in a place like this, you feel like, okay, there's something almost like magical really here. That I could feel that before my daughters, but after I had my daughters, it just became too obvious to not realize it, to not pay attention to it. And then it's basically about playing with not what you see, but what the place makes you think, right? It's like it evokes something in you, the place you come from, or whatever you are actually. It evokes certain thoughts that you can use them, right? So like being able to produce something based on these thoughts, it's me trying to be appreciative and being thankful of, because that's one aspect that people not necessarily talk about. Like maybe if you come from Japan, or maybe even US, there's like this strong sense of culture, really, of movies and exporting your own culture to different places. But sometimes you're in places that are kind of like invisible to other people, but you're still seeing it. You still see it. People don't see it, but you're seeing it. And then again, it's not about being popular. It's just like being honorable, really, and paying homage to the place that raised you, like that brought you up. I think that's the main thing, really. With a lot of the images here, it's about that. It's about like the language of that thing I was talking about, thinking about the using drawing as a way of thinking about things, but also like being thankful to the place where you were born, because it's almost like part of your creativity comes from the place.
It's all part of the tapestry of you.
Yeah.
Vision of that you bring out into the world. It's stunning. I love, I see it after hearing you speak about it. I'm seeing it very differently now. And I get a deeper understanding of it. That the boat, the city there with
Yeah.
the crane, just stunning. Let's move to another piece. Rael, these are stunning. These are just.
Yeah, this was like a funny slash not so funny motivation to do it. It's about depression and anxiety, but I wanted to 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 draw something about these things, because this is something that it's like something that affects me. But I wanted to do in a funny way. I don't know, like something almost like a running vehicle that it's braking, and there's people trying to fix it, and there's a lot of people who are trying to fix you. But I didn't want it to go too deep. I wanted to go more like in a entertaining way, let's say. But yeah, again, it's we trying to digest the things that happen to us, and again, like the thoughts that come through the process of experiencing anxiety and depression and all these things. Sometimes they're funny.
Absolutely. That's very
Yeah.
powerful and funny. And the duality of that, I think, helps it to resonate even more.
Yeah.
I,
This is traditional one.
and again, it's you know, when you come to understand that, when you get this wonderful opportunity to hear you speak about the work, it's such an incredible statement. I love it.
Yeah, it's almost, you know what it feels, Mindy? It feels almost like a diary,
Yeah,
right? You're trying to register certain happenings of your life, and so that you, as time go by, you can still like look at it and remember how you were at that time and the things you were thinking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we as artists, you have this wonderful ability to create these moments, but share them then in a way that others can come to understand and evoke
Mm-hmm.
feelings and experiences from them. It's part of you unifying us as humans. It's important.
Yes, exactly. There's a universality for sure. It's not too obvious, I guess.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah, you're right. It's about trying to connect with people.
yeah. And this is it speaks volumes. It's just powerful, and yet funny, and makes such a great statement all along the way. Let's
Yeah.
move to another. These are just extraordinary, Rael.
Oh, yeah, again, that's what I was talking about before. It's because of my daughters. Of like watching. I remember like watching. You know, like Netflix. There was a session for really young kids, and it's just like awful in my opinion. I mean, the quality. I'm talking about the quality, not necessarily the story, but the quality of the animations is just terrible. And I remember like spending time with my youngest daughter and watching one of those animations and feeling like I was so not interested about the animation, but she was like full on. And I remember like because of her, the experience of watching with her gave me a different feeling about the animation, right? It's almost like I was feeling the excitement that she could feel. So as I was watching that, I thought, oh, that would be fun to talk about it through a drawing and try my own take. It's almost like my designer sort of like head was trying to look at the characters and trying to think in a way that would evoke in my head what she was feeling in her own head, right? So that's again, it's sort of a visual diary
Mm.
of a couple of designs and notes about what I just told you, and also notes about it's in Portuguese. That's a different thing that maybe it's interesting to talk about. It's just trying to cherish even the language really.
Mm.
We make a huge effort to talk other people's languages, and then I would like to go back to my own language and cherish the language and the expression and the words and the way how we talk um, back to it. It's almost like trying to give back to the place I come from. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is your daughter's impression of uh, your work, and inspiring quite a bit of it, or
What?
are they aware that they inspire quite a bit of
They are, but they really don't care, I guess.
it? It's
I think it's the same thing that I felt about my mother. I remember thinking, like watching her drawing and feeling like, okay, this is like different from the drawings I see from other people. I remember like thinking, having this thought in my head, like watching my mother drawing. Um, but after a while, it just becomes like normal. You don't really care about it. It just feels like, okay, that's what people do, and I feel like for them, it's a bit like this. They feel like, yeah, okay, you did another drawing, fine.
value it one day. They will.
Yeah.
Take a look at
It's okay. It's actually good, I think, that it's like that.
yeah,
It humbles you, and it makes you more like it's just like having fun and
keeps you grounded.
so yeah, it keeps you grounded for sure. I really think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Matt, let's take a look at a few more here.
Same sort of like process of creation, although this one it's more about me and when we migrated from Brazil to Canada. and we were in Quebec. And I remember like having certain experiences as an outsider, really, and how people would look at you, and how you feel like the language is different. There's a language barrier. It's French, and then there's like the climate, the weather. It's super difficult. I mean,
very cold.
Yeah, it's super cold. Um, and the way how people dress and the way how people behave, there's a lot of like little things that, as I was saying before about the dissonance, that makes you feel like an alien. But like, again, once you go through that, you don't want to forget those feelings, and at the same time, again, the way I feel about Brazil, I do feel about Quebec too. There's a sense of belonging after having lived there for 6 years. It's almost like my second home, and I want to cherish those times too. So that was like me connecting different happenings. Like I remember like the crows that would visit the apartment, like outside. There was like this huge tree next to my apartment, and they were like just stay there, like looking at us through the window. And I remember like feeling like this is super weird. It's almost like they're trying to say something, and they didn't care we were there. They were not like scared by us. And also like different neighbors I had. Like there was a side of Quebec that people don't know much about. It's kind of dark. The way how people dress, with long coats and the heavy coats, a lot of smoking. So I was trying. I had like some weird neighbors, so I was trying to unify that in an image that could like kind of translate my feelings about the place.
It does. It's
Yeah.
incredible, just incredible. Again, what an amazing, part of your process that being able to distill down all these elements and place them into character. Are you thinking story along these lines as well?
Yeah.
Write your stories.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that.
Again, it's the thing I was talking about, having my girls. It just rewired the way how I was thinking about like art making, and it's also like watching. And there's so much pollution, visual pollution.
Yeah.
I think it was Marina Abramovich, the artist. She was talking something about that, and I felt like, okay, yeah, I think I agree with you. It makes a lot of sense that idea of like art pollution, that people, they're like working in a way that is more concerned with quantity and being present online and having a presence. So like trying to find ways of like going in a different direction. It felt like necessary, like thinking more about story and design. And like since I had my daughters and they were like this huge source of inspiration, I wanted to really celebrate that, I guess. That connection, that I wouldn't be able to be who I am without them, and then trying to expand that to my work. That makes sense. That even the things I do artistically would still consider that aspect of like having a family and having experiences yourself, that they are as interesting as any other experiences could be. Like you know what I mean? It's just like, again, like paying attention to your life.
It's amazing to see how this sort of weaves into your work. It adds a rich layer to what we're seeing. When do you feel you do your best work?
Should I do my best work? I don't know even what that is, like doing my best work.
Well, when do you feel like you've put your best effort out there? Is it within your own personal work? Do you find satisfaction in the day,
Yeah.
the job at times? Are you?
I think the job part is just like trying to be professional, really. There's like good challenges for sure, like working with Volta. Um, they have like interesting projects in slide and trying to um, offer as much value as you can. But again, I wouldn't say that's the most interesting thing. I really like that idea of like using things around you. And I think, what's her name? I don't remember. There was a writer, the lady who wrote Bird by Bird.
Oh, yes.
You know her. So she says something about
on writing.
Exactly. Yeah. And she says something about like everything that happens to you in your life, it's yours to be used the way you feel fit. And I really like that idea of owning the things that they're happening to you and using them as a source of inspiration and in trying to register that somehow. And it's funny because it's almost like subverting expectations of what digital art could be or illustration could be. I mean, there's nothing new there for sure, like as far as what I'm doing is, but it still like feels like a good challenge to myself.
And that's all part of cultivating you as an individual voice, as an individual visionary. And I think that's, again, brings us back to the biggest strength we have as artists, rather than homogenizing the work, but sustaining, adding to that well of your unique experience and vision. I want to open it up. I know I'm seeing some chats go by. Let's open it up, Matt, for some questions. And then we'll keep going on our track here, but I know there have been some really questions coming through.
Our first question here is from Jan, who's asking, do you think there's a difference between personal work and portfolio work?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you're trying. You have to be wise, right? We were talking about like creativity and intentions, but like when you're trying to look for work, you have to be wise and trying to think on how the things you put in your portfolio they can be used by studios and clients. I think there's like some for some people it's the same maybe. I can see some artists that they have like a good interesting personal work and that's commercial enough maybe, but I wouldn't advise necessarily people to do that. You have to think, okay, how can I adapt myself? I think that's the idea of being adaptable, and like you have your own work and you have like versions of that work that they can be more they can be used inside studios and productions, you know what I mean? So there's like gradations maybe of what you can do. So yeah, I guess that's the thing.
Going.
Our next question from Alex, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but they're saying they really love your style and your interpretations and your drawings and concepts. But they're wondering how long did it take for you to develop the way you draw?
I didn't plan to draw like this, if that makes sense. But that's a really good question because it made me remember something that has to do with the choices you make. It's like when you're drawing, it's almost like writing. I feel where you have a certain way of writing the letters, and then it's just what it is, right? You don't. I mean, I know some people they try to change to make their writing better looking, but everybody has a way of writing, and you just get used to it, and you don't think too much about it. And I think there's an aspect of drawing that follows the same principle, really. Of you have I wouldn't be able to explain why that is, but we don't draw the same way, and part of that language an artist can build is just about accepting that you have limitations to the way how you draw and embracing those limitations. I mean, because they're not like bad limitations. I'm not talking about not understanding the fundamentals of drawing, although that could be something that could be used depending on how you work. I know some really interesting book illustrators. They have like this very naive way of drawing that I really love, and it's perfect. It doesn't need to be changed. They don't need to learn to draw better. But it's that idea again of saying, hey, I'm enough, right? I'm studying and I'm drawing, and there's like certain things that I'm attracted about, and certain aesthetics that I'm more lean towards, and then embracing that thing. And it's not completely, it's not a conscious process, but you're aware that you're not trying to be everything, if that makes sense. You're not trying to please everybody. You're not trying to be good at everything and to be the best at everything. I heard a lot of that in the past, like people with that kind of mindset, that they wanted to learn different techniques and to be good at everything, and that's fine if that's what they want to try to be. It's their own problem. But this is, I just don't think like that. And again, embracing that you have like your own way of thinking and working. I think that's the most important thing, at least for me.
I just want to interject. I put in the chat, it's Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Yes.
Woman you're referencing, folks were asking. Matt, let's
Yeah.
keep going. I see.
Our next question here is from Pedro, who's asking, do you think art needs to have a greater purpose? Like, does it need to bring something new or meaningful that might have a positive impact on people? Or is art just something you feel that you need to do and that's reason enough?
Yeah, some people, I used to do the same thing, right? Like you just feel good drawing. It doesn't have to be any greater purpose or whatever, or like being like super thoughtful about what you're doing. That's a personal thing, and it's a necessity, right? I wouldn't be able to tell people how to think about their own work. It's I'm still trying to figure out how I think about my own work. If that makes sense. So it's like whatever makes you draw and makes you interested about your drawing, that's fine as it started. I think the issue is, or the question is, eventually maybe for some people that won't be enough. That won't be enough as a fire starter to keep you drawing. So you're gonna start like searching for deeper reasons, or maybe you're gonna stop drawing. I don't know. I've met people who just felt like, okay, I don't need to draw anymore, and that's good too. I can appreciate that, like that clarity to see what you're doing and feel like, okay, I did enough of this and I can move on to something else. So it's just like it varies from people to people. I don't think people have to do any deeper meaning when they're drawing. I just feel like some people, they use that argument as ways to justify a certain laziness on their process, on their creative process. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying that's Pedro. I'm just saying that I've seen both. You know what I mean?
Okay. I want to jump in really quickly here with much of your drawings, much of your work seems to have a tremendous amount of story behind them and within them. Where do you, are you exploring story as a writer and then creating art to that? Where does story fit in to your work and to where you see your work headed?
It's funny, Mindy. Yeah, I do write, but I don't. I write in a very chaotic way. And I have like a notebook, and I have like post-its and things, and then as I go, I try to connect. Maybe sometimes it's different stories, and or I don't know. It's something new for me. But it just felt like I had to do it. And as far as where I'm trying to go with that, it's I think I was missing that aspect of telling a story rather than just like drawing. I'm not saying I'm going to be a writer or anything, but I like the practice, and I like the idea that there is more to it than just an image, and thinking about it and trying to rationalize how things work together, image and story. So that's a path that I'm trying to go more and more. I've been working on a book on and off for a while, and yeah, it feels like a challenge, a different challenge now, right? You're trying to set challenges from time to time, I feel, to keep you moving, to give you, like, again, a sense of, okay, I'm going somewhere with this, where I couldn't feel that from drawing anymore, only, or it's just like drawing fancy pictures. It didn't feel like anything really. There's so much of it right now that it's almost like there's no necessity to do it anything. But again, when you think about your own life, then there's a different sense to drawing and telling stories, and then again, and sharing them, those stories with people. I feel like I had this experience, and I still have these experiences. When you read a good story, you feel blessed. You feel like someone gave you a gift, like and it makes your life different. So trying to be able to contribute somehow to that same sort of logic.
It sounds like this is the new wilderness for you.
Yeah,
It's your
yeah,
own adventure.
exactly. And feeling good with it, with that discomfort, right? It's like there's a level of discomfort of like walking through a place that you have no idea how it works, and if it's going to work or not as a product, or as a career. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with like trying that and failing, and yeah, it feels like a good challenge.
And many of these experiences, I think you're seasoned with the openness. You know, too often I think we fear, oh my gosh, the blank page, or blank canvas, and where do I go? How do I get there? But it's experience, as you said. You're comfortable. You're aware of what your skills. You've been down that road before in a different adventure, but now, so it'll be exciting to see. Keep us posted when you finally get there.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get there.
Because I think it really speaks to the evolution of your creativity. You have so much story within the imagery, and now to sort of expand with that will be very exciting. Matt, I'm seeing more questions. Let's go back to the questions so we get everyone in.
Yeah, our next question here is asking, how do you deal with the stress and anxiety we often have while doing art? Do you go through it? Does it make it into your process? And is there a kind of process in that you feel that your anxiety is tamed?
No, it's not tamed. I still feel like a lot of anxiety. But yeah, I guess you get used to that discomfort, and there's one trick, I guess, that is like every image you finish, it gives you a sense of realization, and it changes the way how you see your own capabilities, what you're able to do, to provide. So when you have that feeling coming again, you went through that process before. So you know that okay, it comes and goes, and you learn to live with it. But that's the thing, you have to finish, right? You have to finish images. You have to go through the process of like dealing with anxiety and dealing with the fear of not working, whatever you're drawing, you're painting. Maybe it's not going to look good, but then it's like failing and keep trying. And there's like the anxiety, at least in my experience, it doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it because you've experienced it before, so you know that it's manageable, right? So maybe yeah, you don't pay too much attention after a while, but it's still there. I still feel it. It doesn't go away.
What does vulnerability play into this? What is that? How does that apply to your work and your experience?
That's a good question. I think it has to do with that idea of who you're supposed to be, right? It's like how people see you and how you want to be seen. And then it's like if you fail or if you're not as good as so and so, you feel like, okay, I'm a failure. You feel like you're not supposed to be doing that. But that only works if you think you're in the same track as people are. If you think you're running to the same place as people are running, going to the same places, and it's not true, like deep down, if you think about it, you have only your own life and your own experiences and your own limitations too. I won't deny that. I have my own limitations, and then it's just trying to take some profit from that, from those situations, right? From the things that happen to you and your limitations, and it is what it is, I guess. You can't be other people, and I know this is super cheesy, but once you realize it, that okay, I am who I am, and I can study, of course, and I can improve my technique, and I can try to be more conscious about my decisions, and still it's going to be you and you. So in that sense, you realize, okay, you have your own vulnerabilities, your limitations, and people may not like what you're doing. But it was always like that. It didn't change. You know what I mean? You can be the best, supposedly. People can think you're the best artist, and still some people they're not gonna like you. And you're still gonna have like bad moments and everything. So it's just like, okay, embracing that aspect too, that vulnerability.
All part of that tapestry.
Yeah, doesn't care. I mean, it doesn't matter because no time. You know what I mean? It's like people are gonna live their own lives.
Yep, very true. Matt, a few more questions here I'm seeing.
Yeah, the next question here is from Tim, who says in their education, they've been taught to use references in design. They're wondering, what is your process in using references or not? How do you get inspiration for your design?
Everything. I mean, I do use a lot of references. I have like Pinterest. I have a lot of boards on Pinterest. I do try to be as thoughtful as I can when it comes to how things work, the mechanic of things, and kind of the system behind it. So yeah, it does require a lot of references, and I do use it a lot. And at the same time, I try to think of other sources of inspiration for reference material. Again, I like taking pictures sometimes, like small things, something I see when I'm walking, and collect these things too. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing as everybody does. I do use a lot of references.
A lot of it sounds like it's staying open to what comes to you, staying open to what's around you.
Yeah, because sometimes I think that maybe the problem is some people they're they're not really researching. They're like getting something. Let's think about an armor. Let's say like a knight armor, and they're gonna have like this armor that they've seen someone draw, and they're gonna try to draw their version of that armor, and that's not good because that's already being done, and you're losing the chance to really strengthen your own sense of design, like by researching how different time periods that they had their own process of like armor making and different animals and whatever. So it's trying to abstract from that, like from something that it's not necessarily meant to be an armor, and then you're bringing that to your design. And you can extract from anything, like from leaves and from houses. Like they can be like good sources of inspiration, even for an armor, if you think about it. But yeah, I guess that's the thing. It's like trying to be able to abstract more.
I think that's that strong sense of imagination. What do you do to cultivate your imagination? What do you do to keep that sparked and inspired?
I don't know, Mindy. I think.
Is it so second nature to you that
I don't know. It's like I try not to. I know one thing that I do for sure. I don't go in art forums, and even though I use Pinterest, I use it usually to collect things, but I don't spend too much time like checking my own the things that the images they're going to suggest to you. I don't do that. Usually I go for something like very specific and collected, and that's it. I don't spend too much time looking at things, other art pieces like from other people. I don't do that. I mean, I have my sort of like kind of a like family tree, people that I feel like I grew out of those people, from that tree. But those they're like so maybe like ingrained in my head that I don't even feel like the necessity to go and see what they're doing. So maybe that's one good thing, I guess. It's just trying to extract good references from other sources. Yeah.
Matt, I have a few more questions there. Let's jump back to the live stream.
Yeah, our next one here is from Kenneth, who says that they love how you break down your shapes into large, medium, and small. But they're wondering what or who is your biggest inspiration into this kind of visual look?
That's a tough question because I'm not sure which picture he's talking about. I feel like I try to have like a certain level of variation when I'm drawing, so that I don't draw the same thing all the time. I'm not so much interested in that side of drawing where it gets like repetitive. But a source of inspiration. I'm not thinking. I don't
specify specifically the piece you did about the story of the sculptor prisoner.
Okay. That's. I really. There's a lot of things there that they're not conscious, right? Just to be clear. I never studied drawing. I never studied painting, and there's a lot of things that I think it came just from reading comic books, and there's people like Katsuhiro Otomo, and who else? Moebius and Topi, Sergio Topi, Dino Battaglia. There was a guy from Disney too, Mastantuono, Corrado Mastantuono, that I feel like just like looking at the work, it evokes something that it stay with me, I guess. But I never thought about like good. I mean, medium shapes and big shapes and small shapes. I don't tend to think like that. I know what it means, and I know what he means, but it's almost like I feel more like trying to solve a math problem. That there's something wrong and trying to realize why it's wrong, and adjusting it.
Makes sense. Let's keep going, Matt. I see a few more really good questions here.
We have a question from Mark, who's asking, how do you embrace and conquer the fear of failure?
It's funny because in my case, that was sort of imposed upon me through health issues and whatnot. Life problems where I felt like I was facing already. I was dealing with a sense of defeat prior to art making. So that when you're failing as an artist, it doesn't make any difference. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's just more of it. I have a brother. He once said that living is a fatal activity, and I agree totally with him. So it's almost like, okay, you experience that in general, I guess, in your life, like this idea of like failing, of trying to do something. I mean, even small things, right? Like trying to bake a pie, and then it doesn't go as you want it to, but it is what it is. You're just like, I'm gonna try again and trying to maybe read the instructions better. I don't know. It's not a big deal, you know. There's more from where that came from. That piece came from your mind, your imagination. So it's just like keep trying.
Experience teaches us a lot.
No. Exactly. I think it's also the idea. Sometimes, when we're growing up, we feel like we could be so much, right? We could be great, and as you grow older, you start having to deal with the idea of failure more and more, of not having time to do all the things you wanted to do, and making peace with it, right? You won't be all the things you wanted to be, and at the same time, you're going to get places you didn't imagine. So it's just like having that realization with you. I think it's a good thing. I guess it sounds sort of like a bit depressive, maybe, but it's not. It's just like, okay, you're a human being, and you're gonna do good things, and you're gonna fail here and there, and it's all good. It's like that for everybody.
I think these expectations that we might have, or that society might impose on us, are a little limiting at times, and that gets us back to our main theme here of that's all part of that mainstream train that tells us, puts us on a different track. But stepping from that, as you said, I really appreciate you bringing up that there are other experiences and places and people in our lives that we would never have expected, the unexpected, that really bring the great joy that is different than what that mainstream course might be perceived to be, or what we might think we have to achieve in this world. And yet, as artists, we do step off to find a different course, a different path, and so many other extraordinary things open up. So it's about embracing that. And I love how you also speak how your children have opened up a new sides and aspects to your world. And it speaks, I think, it resonates hopefully with other creatives in hearing that. Evolution of who we are as artists. the challenges we face that help us to achieve, get through future challenges, because that's true. Some other great questions, Matt. Let's go back to the live stream.
Yeah, our next question comes from Tim, who's wondering if you watch a lot of movies and animation. And do you think that one needs to watch movies and animation or play video games in order to be a good designer or concept visual development artist?
Well, there's one side of it that is just like having vocabulary, right? And like understanding. Sometimes like a client want to demand something from you, like ask something from you that it's like it should like be influenced by a certain sort of like aesthetics from a movie or something. So it's always good to have like this like visual vocabulary of a certain like level of a visual culture, if that makes sense. Just for the sake of communication, really, being able to communicate and to understand what a project needs to look like. That being said, I'm all for like expanding your influences, right? I feel maybe it's an illusion, but I feel like we have a lot of influence from video games and movies and animation, and it's all good, but there's more to it. There's more in life that you can extract from, more like sources. You have I mean, life in general, as we have been talking about during this conversation. You have books, you have theater, and you have I don't know, you have architecture, right? You have design, like other sorts of design. There's so much to it that if you go after, you're going to find a lot of interesting things that are not connected to what we do. And those are the best sources for me. I remember like reading a lot of comics and then going into studying, not really making per se, but studying contemporary art because of university. And then a lot of discussions, right, about like art sociology and then graffiti. So it's almost like you're being able to leave different bubbles and seeing how people see what they do and different sources of inspiration. So it kind of diversifies your own vocabulary and what's possible to be done and how you think, how you rationalize your own process. I do watch a lot of movies. I love watching movies. I do watch animations too. But yeah, I mean, different things like everybody. And books, I love books.
Great sources right there.
Yeah.
Few more questions here.
Yeah, Sarah's asking, in order to support yourself while you develop your portfolio, do you advise to take another job or to try and concentrate fully on it and live off your savings? If you need a job, does it matter what that job is, as long as it leaves you time to make art?
It really. Hi, Sarah. I know who you are. I remember you. It really depends, I guess. Right. Some people, they're able to do that, to just say, hey, I don't need to work right now. I'm gonna just invest my time. I have like enough savings to take a break and try to study and get better and make like a network that I could like show my work. I mean, my portfolio to different people and find a job doing what I want to do. Some people, they can do that. Some people, they can't. It's a case-to-case situation. I can tell that in my case, I was doing comics for 3 years professionally, and then I took a break to go back to university. And I kind of found this thing about concept art by accident. And once I got my first job, it wasn't like a great studio where everything was a small studio in Brazil, and they were trying to create something there, which was new for that place that I come from. They're trying to even like educate the artists, like instruct them how to do and what to do and how to relate to clients and everything. So it felt like a school place. So I just felt like I'm gonna try to extract as much as I can from this situation, so that I can learn and be better, so that when I deal with a different studio, I'll be more knowledgeable about how things work. So there's that. Some people, they are not able to do that, just like quit their jobs and focus on improving. But I feel like you just have to have like the right understanding of where you're trying to go, so it's clear what you need to improve your own work, and the things you need to learn, let's say, as an artist, the technical aspects, but also like the technicalities of like being a concept artist for video games, for instance, and then trying to get to know people, right? But it's like step by step, I would say.
So good thoughts. What's for you personally as a visual artist, and even in life, what's the best advice you've been given?
The best advice I've been given. Let me think.
That's a big one. That's a big heavy.
I think it's not necessarily an advice, but it's an observation on art making made by Milton Glaser, the designer. You know, the I Heart New York designer. Mm-hmm. And I remember him saying that the purpose of art is of bringing us to a state of attentiveness. That would be the main focus of art. That good art has that quality of making us attentive. And that came to me in a point in my life where I was struggling to make that clear, right, to myself and to other people around me. But I wasn't able to put in words what that feeling was. And I remember when I saw like Glazer talking about it, it felt like, okay, thank you. Thank you, because it makes a lot of sense. You don't need to take it as like an absolute truth, but it just gives you some guidance on how you can relate to your own work.
Having things articulated, I think, when you personally have been sort of trying to struggle to express it in some way, I think that's an important part of staying creative, is staying open to and seeking out other creatives and the work of others, to know you're not alone as an artist.
Yeah.
They perhaps are a little further down this road, into the wilderness of it, and can, their experience, their insights can help ease the direction for you as well. That's really key. You certainly have been doing that quite a bit today in our conversation, and I greatly appreciate it. For you, Rael, what is the purpose and the power behind visual storytelling and the work you do?
I think storytelling, or like just illustration, or storytelling through illustration, it gives you a different frequency of dialogue with people, right? I don't know who was saying that music would be a higher creative expression, because it makes you feel things, right?
Beethoven said, "Music hath the ability to express the inexpressible."
There you go. And I won't deny that, but I feel it's a bit more complex for sure than that. That it's music. It makes you follow a certain pattern, let's say, right, in terms of rhythm. Whereas when you think about like visual art, it allows you that you take your own time as far as like navigating through the picture goes. And in that sense, I think it amplifies, it adds something to your experience of life, of reality, of how things work, that when you see a good work of art, it transforms you because it makes able to you to see things from a different lens, right? So you have, as a very like obvious example, you have someone like Van Gogh, and you look at Van Gogh and you feel like, oh, I never thought about light in that sense. And then it just adds to your own experience of reality and how you see things. So I feel like I feel like that it's almost like you're trying to, I mean, as a viewer, you have that experience, and as the maker, as the artist, there is that, and there is also again a deep sense of trying to connect to the object of your creation, and saying, hey, this is important to me for some reason, and I want to register, I want to make it clear, and I'm not able to talk about it sometimes. People don't understand what you're talking about, and drawing, it's maybe a better way of trying to show it, to talk about it.
So important.
Yeah.
And to wrap this out, let's talk a little bit about what's ahead for you on your journey, and are you horizons that you have to explore as an artist that you can see ahead of you?
That's hard to.
It's hard to articulate, I know, but
yeah, but it's like,
where are you being called? What direction are you? You mentioned story and writing.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. I mean, not professionally, but just like on my own. I've been working on a few things, but they're not like fully fledged right now. Working with some friends and discussing ideas. And I do want to work more like on the storytelling side of things. I mean, I'm still using image, but more like not as a single picture, but more like as an experience. And trying to find ways of doing more of that, if that makes sense, of trying to find places that are interested in doing that. But again, I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I'm okay with that uncertainty, because it's either that or just doing what I'm doing. I mean, working as a concept artist, and it's good. It's not a bad career, but if you can do more, why not, right? And trying to find those places. The hard thing and the good thing is, the hard thing is there's no path. It's like you have to figure out your own way of like doing certain things, because they're not, especially when it comes to digital art, there are certain things that they're not spoken about. The possibilities, let's say, there's a lot of that's how you should behave, and that's what you should do, and that's how you should think, and I'm not interested in that. And the good side is that allows you to find a different path, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Discovery and being comfortable in that uncertainty is something we as humans struggle with. Society tells us that it has to be all laid out and prepared, and steps have to be in place. But I think as artists, it's important to cultivate the ability to stay comfortable with the uncertainty and the ambiguity of projects as they evolve. Talk about how you discover things, how you when you get to the place that this is what I need to be doing, this is the project, all the parts align. Is that a whole new level of creativity for you then? based on a project per se. So say, for example, you have you're exploring writing, but as you said, bits and pieces come from different areas. But when are you at the point where you can start to mix the stew that all of these pieces have been a part of into, you know?
Um, that's a challenge because, again, I was talking about like there's no, it's not a clear path. So I feel like trying to figure out how things should work, right? Is this how it's supposed to happen? Is this how people write? Is this how people create? And you can have like some hints from art making, like from drawing, like how your creativity flows and how you rationalize your process. For now, I can only say that it feels like a collage. You have like different things, and sometimes you try to make them work together. And I like the idea of like a dialogue between story and drawing, where you write a bit and you draw, and then you write again, and then you draw again, and again, it's like walking in a neighborhood you've never been before, but trying to think, okay, I think I can manage one more block, and maybe I won't get lost. So that's what I've been doing.
That's exciting. We've talked about this stepping into the wilderness of that, and that really is when you even talk about it, as uncertain as you may be with where the destination is, if there has to be a destination, I see a difference in you and how you light up about that versus questions having to do with the day to day. So it's interesting. I just wanted to share that it even shows in your demeanor about what sparks and excites you. Is that sort of unknown?
Yeah, I think it's just, I think it's because a part of it is just like getting there is so much like sharing of information that you feel like, okay, I think I'm good on that side, right? You don't feel like yourself doing any more of it, because there is so much, even for myself, like when I want anything, like I'm curious about like writing, or I can just like go online and research and read and whatever, and it feels like, okay, that's good. And what about the things that I can't find, right? There is a book, a really good book from I forgot his name. It's a Portuguese writer. The Tale, I don't know the translation because I read it in Portuguese, but it's The Tale of the Unknown Island, something like that. And it's all about, well, the guy wants a boat, right? And he goes to talk to the king, and the king says, "Oh, well, why do you want a boat?" And says, "I want a boat because I want to discover the unknown island." And the king tells him, "Oh, hey, but all the islands have already been discovered." It's Saramago. Yeah, someone posted here. Thank you, guys. Saramago. And the guy says basically, well, all the islands might be discovered already, but not by me, right? I have to go and see them. And I really like that. And the idea that you have all these sources of information here, and they're safe and they're good. It's important. And at the same time, there's an aspect of learning that it has to do with you, like taking your boat and trying things, right? It's like trying by yourself and seeing how you react to that learning process, right? And trying to figure out things by yourself, and being okay with failure and everything inside. That I feel, as you said, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because that's when you find the unknown islands. That's when you find new territories. And I don't know how they look, you know what I mean? But it's just like going different places instead of everybody going to the same place. Yeah.
Rael, thank you for your time today and for sharing your journeys with us. It's been a real honor and joy to get to explore these areas, and I think you have made us wiser, more creative, and a little stronger in who we are as artists today with your conversation. So thank you. It's been a joy.
Yeah.
See where the next adventure is for you. So do keep in touch. We'll definitely have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure to me talking to you. You're a very kind person too. Very interesting questions. Thank you everybody for the questions and for being here with us and sharing this time. It means a lot to me too. Thank you.